Okay, welcome Fairmount. I'll hand straight over to Team Leader Mike Stallings to do some introductions.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. We would like next time to come after or before San Antonio, so we appreciate that. So congratulations to them. Mike Stallings again. Thank you for having me this morning. The retired division chief from Rocky Mount Fire Department, North Carolina, and here representing as team lead for the Fairmount Fire Protection District in Colorado. I do want to recognize my fellow peer team members, some of which are here today. Jeff Helm, Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, Eric Kramer, Addison Fire Protection District, and Matt Jacoby, Cary Fire Department. To my right is Chief Alan Fletcher, our Fire Chief, and I'll ask him to introduce the rest of the members here before I continue. Thanks.
Good morning. Very excited to be here and introduce some of our team members that are with us here today. To my immediate right is our Accreditation Manager and Division Chief Fire Marshal Neil Rosenberger. Next to him is our President of our District Board, Robert Wilson II. Next to him is Battalion Chief Joe Snyder, Special Operations. And at the end is Local 5013 Lieutenant Johnny Macy.
Thank you, Chief. Fairmount Fire Protection District is located just west of Denver, in between the towns of Golden, Arvada, and Wheat Ridge on Colorado's Front Range. There are 3 fire stations operated by both career and volunteer personnel. As of October 2017, the fire department is an ISO Class II organization. Chief Fletcher has served as a peer team member, while Fire Marshal Neil Rosenberger also serves as peer team leader. Both have applied their experiences toward preparing Fairmount for the accreditation process, along with their detailed self-assessment programs and services. The peer team visited Fairmount facilities and spoke with all Fairmount personnel as well as members of the governing body. The Fairmount administrative staff and line personnel are keenly aware of what the risks are in the community and are involved with developing programs and strategies to address those risks. Fairmount also utilizes their fire inspections and targeted public education efforts as part of their risk management activities. And all of these community risks are clearly defined, categorized, and classified in the Community Risk Assessment and SOC. They utilize their strategic plan as a living document for organizational planning and for monitoring progress toward meeting their specific goals and objectives. The department's self-assessment and continuous improvement efforts are recognized and supported by city leaders. The peer team had face-to-face interactions with board members and the labor president, and all expressed knowledge of the accreditation process and showed strong support for the department's effort to provide quality and sustainable services to the community through the accreditation process. I'll now turn it over to Chief Fletcher.
Again, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. Thank you for your time as well. This process has made us a better organization. I think part of that is evident in our ISO 2 rating that we received over a year ago. As we were getting ready for this process, that helped us get to that rating. But I think more importantly, it continues to challenge us to ask the question, why? Why do we do what we do? From there, we determine the what, how, where, and when. I've had the privilege of being the accreditation manager, a peer assessor, and now a CFO of a candidate agency. We are better for going through this process and only will continue to improve moving forward. I want to thank the members of the Fairmount Fire Rescue, Board of Directors, and our members here today. Without them, we would not be able to be here before you. I also like to thank our peer lead, Mike Stallings, and his team members who were very professional through this process, and the support of the Rocky Mountain Consortium, which is a great group in Colorado to help those agencies seeking accreditation, those who are accredited, to continue to pursue that accreditation in the future. It's because of all these people and the work that they do that I'm able to be here before you today. We have for you, or have provided you, an accreditation update since the peer team has been here. There were 20 recommendations. We've addressed several of those. All of them have been addressed. Some are completed, but certainly would be willing and able and excited to answer any questions that you have this morning.
Questions for Commission? Chief Thompson.
So, although you've already addressed in 2A3 that it is complete, excuse me. But this recommendation is very similar to when my organization was in front of the commission, and the result of my realignment brought up to surface things I would have not captured if what I kept on going the same way. So my site team said, yeah, you need to expand that so you can go ahead and analyze that. I went from 11 fire demand zones, or 10 to 11 fire demand zones, and 36 planning districts. So saying that, and what have you found out now? Although it's still relatively new, and I know, Neil, you've probably gone ahead and just went crazy with that. I know you added a few more. What did you find out that you didn't have in place before, Chief?
I think it was clear as we went through this process that it really was bigger than just the 2 districts that we had. There was so much more detail inside the organization. And so we naturally looked at some of those breaks and some of these zones. Some of them are geographical, whether it's particular types of businesses that are located in that area. One of those is Coors Brewery, that by itself is a unique hazard. Associated with that, we have some park areas that seem to be find themselves easily identified as a specific zone, so that we can go and look at rescues that are unique to something else in a residential area. And again, some of our business communities that we found really a lot more detail when we broke them out separately to determine what was in there and what was needed, and more importantly for us to respond to those areas. So we've added 4 new areas.
Okay, so did you make any changes in your run cards and who's going and things like that, or is it too soon with that, trying to get that
It's a little
information?
too soon, although there's, anecdotally, we had some ideas of what we wanted to do. So we have some changes in our commercial area that we've added, and over time, we will see how that goes through measuring that response to see if there was a change in that.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief Dirksen?
In the report, it talked about AMR as a third-party EMS provider in your community. Who initiates a contract with them to authorize them to operate within your community?
Ultimately, the board of directors, I start that process, and then it's approved through the board.
Okay, and then going along with that, there was a recommendation to establish the formal recommendations. I haven't had a chance to read through this, so you probably addressed it. But what steps have you taken to provide regular meetings or oversight with them and get them to report to your community in all transparency their response times?
We have strengthened that relationship to where we meet monthly. They give us their times, but we track all of their times through our dispatch center. And so we've actually found that in our case of tracking their times, they're doing a little bit better than they thought they were doing. And so we've actually seen an improvement even in the last 3 months in their total response time into our area.
Okay. And I have another question. It goes back to your communications center. Who makes up the board that oversees the communications center? Because I imagine it's sheriffs and police departments and other fire departments that run through there. Who makes up that oversight there as well?
So that was a cooperation of several PSAPs in our county. So all the representatives of those facilities are on the board.
So are you
that's
a
both
member of
police and fire. We're a service provider, so we actually contract for them, so we pay for the service. But we are represented in the fact that we have monthly meetings as well, and access to, of course, the board and any concerns that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Rhodes?
One thing that kind of stood out is turnout times. And I read that you're kind of addressing those, and turnout times is like a whole bowl of Cheerios. It goes back to dispatch. We tie that piece in because there's a lot of technology, people, service providers, all those other things. But at the end, it's that impetus to get on the truck. How are you addressing that? Because technology looks like you're on, taken care of. How do you change that urgency to get on?
Part of that is the awareness and having the discussion. It's been great to see our crews take some of the initiative and actually go through some scenarios, putting themselves at different places within the station, acting as though they may be in bed, and finding ways to actually get to the apparatus as quickly as possible. There are some limitations based on station configurations and things that we may not be able to change right away, but having that sense of, what do I actually wear when I go to bed that I can help limit what I need to put on when I get up in the middle of the night. How is my gear laid out? Those types of things. And again, the awareness of how long does it really take me to go from one part A of the building to part B of the building. And that's really helped a lot, and we've seen a great improvement in that.
would like to see those scenarios involving firefighters taking naps as part of that. That's good stuff.
They've had some fun with that. They've had some fun.
That's good. Thank you.
Jim?
I'm going to direct my question to President Macy. What role did you or your organization play in this process? And secondly, how did you sell the value of accreditation to your members? How did you get buy-in?
So the role that I played in the process as it was developed was obviously supporting different pieces of it, whether it be from putting together information for the wildland side of it that we do, as well as the other part of it, which is part of my passion, is the fire prevention. How it was sold to the boots on the ground was really another tool out there to really take and evaluate the things that we as an organization do inside our community as well as outside, and look at that from a standpoint of continuous improvement model. One of the things that we saw is not only did it demonstrate what we thought we were doing well in to help identify those strengths, some of those strengths we weren't even aware that they were a strength for us, but it also identified for us some of those weaknesses and put in place, some kind of checks and balances, so things that we can work on to improve those. I think ultimately when we sat down as boots on the ground and looked at the process, discussed it and evaluated it, I think one of the biggest questions that we had is why didn't we seek this opportunity sooner? Because it really is a great process.
Good answer. And you're here now. And what I've seen in the 4 or 5 years I've been doing this is where there's good labor management relations. These reports are very well done, and the department reaches the accreditation status. So congratulations on that. Chief, I'll direct this one to you. The report indicates that you are starting with annual medicals in 2019. How is that going? How's the implementation process? And has there been any resistance from the members?
It's going very well. In fact, last week we finished those, so we've been through that. There's always a little apprehension. You're just not sure, what's going to go on with that. It's just reassuring folks that this process is there to make sure that if we find something that it's addressed. It's not a punitive system. It's a system to help make sure that we have our full time in the fire service, and more importantly, when we're done to retire, that we have a lot of time in retirement. So I think it's been received well, and President Macy might have a comment on that if you have one as well. That I believe everybody has supported it.
Yeah, as it relates to the health and wellness, we started that this year. I know from a labor standpoint, that was one of the areas that we were definitely lacking in. Through this process, it was obviously identified as one of the weaknesses. Since then, as well as the roadway or the pathway to this table, we've put in place many things that we didn't have in the past, such as extractors at each station, backup bunker gear. We've identified and put in place a more defined and definitive maintaining of gear, when it should be washed, how it should be washed, particularly the hoods, the weak part of the ensemble. So it really has been a great process, and we're just looking forward to continue it in the future.
It's great to see you embracing it across the board. Well done.
Thanks.
Chief Erickson?
You may have just answered my question, but the report talks about PPEs and inspections yearly. Have you implemented that, or do you have a plan to implement that?
Yes, we have implemented that. Really, parts of that were in place when the team was there. Just some T's and I's weren't dotted. So all the SOP is in place. We actually purchased all the extractors a few years ago on a grant. And so that process is underway. I think what we're looking for is to measure that this year to see if we see any changes in repairs, or if we start to come up with any issues with gear that maybe we weren't looking at before. So as we've implemented this, we'll still have some time to take a look at how effective it is.
Unless there's any last questions, can I get a motion?
I'll move to accredit.
Second?
I'll second.
Yep, second, Tommy Thompson. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, Fairmount. And again, we'll see you at 9 o'clock in the Regal Room for photographs.